Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. Jessica Donovan here. I'm honoured that you're taking the time to tune into this episode. Today I want to check in with you as a mum. Maybe there are some dads listening, as a parent, as a carer of children, and check in with where you're at and offer you some tips and some experiences, some things that are working for me at the moment, as I really focus on filling my cup so that I'm able to be a better mum and a better human in the world. So I really wanted to touch on this topic because we've recently come out of a very, very busy period here at Natural Super Kids where we put on a free kids gut health masterclass, and a shout out to anyone who was there. And through that experience of, sharing that information and holding space for the parents that came along to that masterclass within our Facebook group, actually live on the masterclass, there was this real, it just became very obvious as to all of the challenges that parents are dealing with. So here at Natural Super Kids, we do, a lot of people in our audience have kids with health challenges, health conditions, health symptoms that they're struggling with. And so they find us because we talk a lot about naturopathic solutions, getting to the root cause, and share what we hope is inspiring and practical information of how you can start to make some healthy changes for your kids and for your family. So I just want to acknowledge that if you are a parent that is struggling with kids' health issues, whether it's mood and behaviour, whether it's that they're really fussy or picky eaters, whether they've got tummy troubles, allergies, eczema, intolerances, food intolerances, all of these things are really common in terms of the people that we have in our community and struggling with these things. And it's a lot. And it's a lot to navigate. There's a lot of information to take in. If you're here in our community, you're looking at alternative ways or complementary ways that you can really support your kids' health. And so I want to acknowledge that that's hard. There's a lot of your energy and your resources that pour into that. Being a parent in the modern world is, complex enough. We're juggling so many balls, and to add in these health challenges that we are, that I've just talked about, it just adds another ball or 10 balls to those things that you are juggling. So I just want to acknowledge that, that there's a lot that goes into that. And if you're in our community, I know that you are proactive about finding solutions for your kids' health and nutrition. Maybe you're listening and your kids don't actually have any particular challenges or issues, but you just want the best health for your kids. So, I acknowledge you being here too. And so today I want to talk through some things that are real staples, if you like, in my life, and have really helped me get through different stages of parenting, different challenges, to make sure that I am filled up, that I am the best version of myself that I can be, to deal with, whatever life throws at me, whatever parenting throws at me, whatever kids throw at me. And so I thought it might be helpful for me to just talk through some of the things that that really help me in everyday life to make sure that I'm as healthy as possible and as centered as possible for all of those things that life throws at us. And just in terms of where I'm at, I think a lot of you probably know that my kids are 14 and 16, nearly 17 and 15. My gosh. And it just is crazy how quickly, it just boggles my mind saying those ages aloud, because I feel like they've gotten here so quickly. And I've talked a lot about, how that phrase, the days are long, but the years are short, has never hit me as much as over the last probably 12 months. And so here I am with older children, maybe older than yours, but I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of what we experience as parents when we're navigating health challenges, like so many of you are, and also what I'm experiencing potentially having older kids. So one thing that's probably different is, I've got this more spacious schedule now. I've got more free time than I've had since I've had babies. And that is both lovely, but also very strange and kind of leaves me often feeling a bit lost. And also, if I'm honest, can feel a bit lonely sometimes as well. These teen years are, oh gosh, they're so amazing in so many ways, but they're also tricky in so many ways. My kids don't necessarily want me around as much as they used to, but I know that they need me around more than ever, but it's on their terms. So if I start blasting them with questions when they come home from school, they're generally pretty, I don't get much out of them. And I've actually said to my kids, just tell me if you're not up for talking. And they will often say, I don't want to talk right now. But they will come back, later in the afternoon or later in the evening with all these things to tell me, or after dinner. We have these amazing family dinners now where, it doesn't always go smoothly. There can be family arguments and disagreements and things because everyone's got their own opinions about things now. But we have this lovely time most nights after dinner where there's this kind of talking and connecting. So that's another thing that I'm kind of, experiencing at the moment. And I'm feeling like I really have to ramp up my self-care practices, because I think through the teen years, and anyone else with teens might resonate with this, you have to have thick skin. It's developmentally normal for your kids to start moving away from you, detaching from you through the teen years. And that can be really hard as a parent, the feelings that come up, that, finding yourself again, feeling the feelings of grief, of losing the little people that you once had. And it's also developmentally normal for teens, because they're sort of moving away and gaining so much of more of that independence and that sense of self, that they get really annoyed and irritated with you as a parent very easily. And that can be quite harsh sometimes to deal with. So I, am learning not to take things personally. There's got to be that balance between, okay, that's, I'm okay with you moving away and being irritated by these things, but you still need to be respectful. So there's that, that tricky balance to get right as well. But I feel like you really do need to develop a thick skin as a parent of a teen, because they can be harsh, they can easily get annoyed and irritated by you. They can be quite blunt and straightforward. As with all kids, when they're holding so much stuff like social stuff and school stuff and expectations, then that can all come out, in a like blah towards you when they get home and when they've got that safe space to land. So, I think this is very similar with younger kids who hold it all in, at school. And I remember my daughter when she was younger, she would always have these meltdowns after school. And, I knew that it was because she'd been holding it all in at school. And I think that for some kids can kind of get exacerbated in the teen years as well. So where I'm at and where you're at might be quite different, but I think all through the parenting journey, when you've got newborn babies all the way through to almost adult, like I have, a almost 17-year-old, we need to take care of ourselves so that we're able to give to our children and hold our children and support our children with whatever they're going through, whether it's a health challenge, whether it's social stuff at school, whether it's, a developmentally tricky time. And so I want to go into some of the things that I do. Really, it's 5 main things to keep myself grounded, to make sure I am as healthy as possible so that I'm able to deal with these things. And I hope that you're, inspired by to try some of these things if you're not already. So the first one for me is movement. So I sit at a desk. We've got an online business with Natural Super Kids. I sit at a desk to work. I do have a standing desk, so I do stand as well, but I've got a sedentary job, as so many of us do. And so I find moving my body, and I'm also in my mid-40s, so I'm finding this is a time where I really want to work on making sure, I'm strong and fit and healthy, and I'm not losing, strength as I get older and all of that sort of thing. Physical activity is so important, and I have harped on about this for years and years and years. I've always been pretty good at moving my body because it makes me feel so good, so much better. And so walking, I absolutely love my daily walks. I also am doing quite a bit more strength weight training. We're lucky to have a gym set up in our garage. So I've got really good options for doing some strength training. We've got a cable machine and we've got dumbbells, and my husband previously worked as a personal trainer, so he's got a really good gym setup, which I'm lucky to have. And so strength training at least a couple of times a week, I try and aim for 3, don't always get there, is just really helps me feel strong and ready to tackle my day. And I'm doing sort of 30-minute workouts. So they're not really long workouts, but walking and strength training, some stretching and yoga, to kind of balance it all out, is, I really enjoy as well. So I think if you're not moving your body as much as would be beneficial every day, then I would highly, highly, highly recommend finding a way to fit that in. If it's a walk with kids, if it's while the kids play on play equipment at the playground, you're, doing some squats and push-ups and core work, or you're just getting out in the backyard, jumping on the trampoline with the children. Anything that you can do to move your body helps so much you to be able to cope with whatever parenting life throws at you. And so if you're not doing anything and 30 minutes a day feels like that's just a big ask at the moment, start with 5 minutes, move to 10 minutes. And here in the Southern Hemisphere, we've got daylight savings happening at the moment. Well, not in every state, but most states. So I think that can make it a bit easier to get out and go for an evening walk with the family or on your own. And the other thing that I really try and do, at least some of the time when I'm moving, is mindfulness, moving meditation, if you like. So really focusing on my breath as I'm walking, or focusing on my senses. What am I seeing? How's that, like watching that tree moving, noticing those birds flying, really listening to those waves coming in if I'm walking along the beach. So that really helps me to get out of my head and more into my body and get that real kind of form of rest while I'm moving my body. So that's definitely number one for me. And then we've got, what we're putting into our mouths, right? So eating well is important. And, my diet isn't absolutely perfect all of the time. I'm definitely not a purist, but the things that I prioritize are adequate protein. So making sure I'm getting protein in at every meal. Especially at breakfast time. And so I've been making up this, like my favorite protein-rich breakfast at the moment is I mix up an egg, just one egg, add into a couple of tablespoons of almond meal, a little like quarter of a teaspoon of baking powder, a splash of olive oil, mix all that up, and you can just pop that in a pan and make like a pancakey type thing out of that mix, or you can put it in the microwave for 90 seconds. And then topping that with avocado, and I put some, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it za'atar, spice mix, bit of salt and pepper on the top, and it's delicious and it's savory and it's got, a good level of protein in there. So that's been my favorite breakfast recently. And so, yeah, protein at every meal definitely helps with those up and down blood sugar fluctuations, the up and down energy levels, the up and down moods. So protein is number one. And also prioritizing plant foods. Lots of plant foods in my diet, a really good mix of vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. So making sure there's plant foods in all of my meals as well. And I think the third one would be hydration, making sure that I'm well hydrated. So drinking plenty of water, adding a pinch of salt to my water really helps with hydration as well. That can make such a difference to the way that you are feeling. If you're feeling a bit sleepy, a glass of water with a pinch of some good quality salt to help with the absorption of that water and help that hydration even further makes such a difference. Next one is sleeping and resting. I've heard some stats lately, I haven't looked into them, that women need much more sleep than men. And I'm finding in this perimenopausal phase of life that I'm in, I need more sleep than I've had before. And, the good thing about having teenagers is they sleep in the morning. You're not getting woken up like I used to at 5 a.m. My kids were both very early risers when they were little. Now I am dragging my daughter particularly out of, I'm not really dragging her, but trying to get her up and out of bed by like at 10 a.m. on the weekend. And I know teenagers definitely need more sleep as well. Their body clock is later, like they tend to kind of wind down later. So I'm very aware of, how important sleep is for teenagers. But going back to me, I'm not much of a sleeper-innerer, technical term, but I do like to go to bed early. And my kids are always like, why are you going to bed so early? You go to bed so early. But I just find I need that sleep. And I also am prioritizing rest as well. So not just getting enough sleep, but making sure I'm resting. And of course, this goes up and down. There's busy periods where, I don't have the opportunity to necessarily rest, but I'm getting better at resting and not feeling guilty about it. I'll usually, have a book in my hand, but I'm also getting better at just sort of sitting and staring. So we are very lucky to live right on a conservation park. So our front yard is kind of this open, beautiful conservation park. And so I will often sit out on our front deck and just watch. And again, try and be mindful, watching the birds and noticing the breeze and focusing on my breath. So that has been ongoing practice of me getting comfortable with resting when, there's always things that we could be doing, right? But feeling okay about resting. And I particularly listened to this on the first couple of days of my cycle. In this perimenopausal phase, I'm getting, quite heavy periods. I'm like, they're a little bit painful, which I've never had before. And so it's kind of forcing me to rest on those days. And I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. Let's just say that. I think it's also really important, as I said, I'm going through a big transition with my kids getting older. There's a lot to process. And so just giving yourself time to sit and think and process and try not to think, I think is really valuable as well. And I know if you've got younger children, this is so much harder, but know that this time where you are able to get more rest and sleep does come. And if there's anything that you can do, any sort of support that you can call in so that you are able to get adequate sleep and get adequate rest, I think that is very worthwhile. Number 4 is, really the connection and focusing on relationships. So whether you are going through some health struggles with your children, some mood, behavioral struggles with your children, or whether you're like me and you're in this transitional period of parenting where your kids are growing up, it can feel lonely. You can feel quite alone in it all, even if logically you know that you're not, even if you've got a supportive husband like I do, you've got friends that are at similar ages, have kids that are at similar ages. Your unique experience of what you're going through is never the same as what someone else is going through. So I've definitely been surprised at these feelings of aloneness, even though I'm not alone, that have come up through this period. And I've heard from, and I know from supporting lots of parents with kids with chronic health issues that is very common, especially if your kids are struggling socially. If they're neurodivergent or those sorts of things, it can, you can feel really alone and not sort of knowing where to turn. And when you're feeling lonely, this is my experience anyway, it can kind of be hard to reach out to people. And so I think, and this is something that, again, I'm still working on, but really focusing on your relationships with your husband or partner, your friends, your kids, friends, parents, I think can be really helpful to form connections with them. I have a group of friends that are in business for themselves as well. They have online businesses, so we regularly talk, and I value the connection that I have with them because they get it. Whereas my other friends that don't have businesses, they don't get it, and because they live a different experience. And so I don't want to bore them with all my, the business talk, for example. And I know for a lot of parents, if your child is struggling with something that other parents in your circle don't get, it can be really tricky. So I think finding like-minded people and having circles of friends, or even a friend that has similar challenges to you, can be really helpful. And if you can't find that person, then, seeking the help of a counsellor or a support group can kind of take that place as well. So I think really important to focus on those connections. And sometimes you don't really, it can be hard to reach out, but having regular kind of connection times, I think, is important. So I've got a friend, my best friend. She lives just around the corner. I'm so lucky. We've been friends since high school. We're quite different in lots of ways. Our kids are similar-ish ages. Hers are a little bit younger than mine. Almost every single weekend we go for a long beach walk together. And it's so good. I always feel amazing when I come back from those walks because we just vent. We vent about our lives. We're both going through different challenges, but we just chat. And sometimes I might not necessarily feel like going for that walk but afterwards I always feel so much more connected. And I think when we're going through challenges or transitional times in our parenting or health challenges with our kids, keeping, like, if you've got a partner, a husband, sometimes there are differences in the way that we might respond or react or want to deal with these challenges or transitional times. And that's certainly been the case for my husband and I. We have, sometimes quite different views in parenting. We can get very irked by each other's, differences, but things just, despite all of that, when we come together and we're on the same team, which we try and do as much as possible, life just feels easier. Even if we have different views about something, reminding each other, hang on a minute, we're on the same team here. And I think this has been really important for us through the teenage years. We do not always get that right. I'll be totally transparent and say that. But I find navigating the challenges that come with the teenage parenting years feels so much more flowy, so much easier, so much lighter when we are recognizing that we're on the same team, even if we might have different views about how to deal with a particular challenge that comes up. Hopefully that makes sense. And then coming back to relationship to ourselves as well, making sure that we are making time to do things that light us up. And through these teen years, as I said, I've got a more spacious schedule than ever. Often my kids are out and about doing their own thing, and I might have a Saturday afternoon to myself, whereas, a few years ago, it was all about family kind of outings. And so finding myself again has been a bit of a process. Like, what do I like to do? There's been a bit of boredom in all of that. Like, I don't know what I'm what I'm supposed to do here. And so, I've been reading a lot. I've been doing a lot of pottering around the house. We've been doing some renovations and that sort of thing. So I've been really enjoying that. Cooking is always a go-to for me. And of course, those long walks, but making sure you've got, whether it's hobbies or just things that fill up your cup and bring you back to yourself and what you love, I think are really important. And again, if you've got younger kids, I know that this is very tricky. But I would just, encourage you to think about how you can bring some more of that in. And it doesn't necessarily need to be alone time without the kids. You can certainly, find things that you can do that fill you up while you're with the kids as well. And I think that's really helpful when you've got young kids. And the fifth thing I want to talk about is topping myself up. So as a naturopath, of course, I'm very passionate about nutrition. I'm very passionate about herbal medicine. And so I don't know what I would do without my nutritional supplements and my herbal remedies that I take regularly. So, this is very different for everyone, but for me personally, I take a good quality multivitamin most days that has, active Bs and minerals and phytonutrients and antioxidants in it. I top up on magnesium and taurine. So the combination of magnesium and taurine work beautifully for hormonal balance through the perimenopausal stage of life, but also for the nervous system, for calming, for relaxing. So I love my magnesium and taurine powder that I take. And I also take some herbal medicine to support adrenals, to support hormones, to support my nervous system as well. And so I think if you're not taking any supplements, it potentially is a good thing to think about. I'm also taking gut supplements generally, fairly often as well, things like probiotics and other fuel for my gut in supplement form, which I'm obviously also getting through food and lots of plant foods in my diet as well. If you're interested in exploring what supplements might be best for you, or herbs to balance hormones or replenish adrenals, if long-term stress has been, an ongoing issue, which for most of us parents it is, nervous system support, then you can book an appointment with one of our practitioners to get a really solid sort of supplement plan in place, as well as obviously looking at everything holistically and looking at lifestyle and diet and all of that sort of thing. We do always talk about supplements being like the icing on the cake. There's no point taking a heap of supplements if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're not moving your body regularly, if you're not getting time outside. And I don't know if I said this, but with my daily movement, I'm always getting some outside time as well. So sunshine is so important, and just that connection to nature, whether it be on the beach or in the scrub. Like, I'm very lucky to live close to both a scrub and the beach. So I've kind of like, do I feel like trees or do I feel like the ocean today? So I think that's really a really important part of the whole picture as well. So thank you for listening to my ramblings. Like, I just wanted to share a bit more about some of those key things that I'm doing to stay grounded, to fill up my cup, and to really look after myself so that I'm better able to look after my family. And even though my situation, my stage of parenting, my stage of life may be different to yours, these are things that I've really tried to prioritize, really since my babies were little. And, it's harder when they're little to find time for all of this stuff. But if you can implement even just tiny little small pockets of this stuff that we've talked about, and make improvements or progress in things like the amount of physical activity that you're doing, how you're eating, how much you're sleeping and resting, how much you're prioritizing relationships and connection with others, and topping up with things like supplements, herbs, nutrients. These are the things that I just don't know how I would survive without. So I'd love to hear how you've enjoyed this episode, what your takeaway from this episode has been, what you are going to focus on making progress in moving forward. Send me a message on Instagram over at Natural Super Kids. I'd love to hear from you. And I always love to hear how our particular episodes resonate with you as well. Thank you so much, and take care of yourself. Know that taking care of yourself is one of the best things that you can do to take care of the health and well-being of your family. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week.